Thank you.
And then we'll go ahead and approve the minutes from last month. Would someone like to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
And is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor, if you could raise your hand. Thank you. Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay, great. And the first item we have on our agenda is the introduction of Christy Wiseman, Housing and Community Investment Manager. So welcome, Christy.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna say a word about Christy real quick too. After, assuming you do your own introduction first. But Christy joined us as our new housing investment manager. So that she did replace Deb Calise that you have all met before. And she'll be leading the division when it comes to very many of the things that we present to you here tonight. So I'm so excited to have Christy. And of course, you can say in your own words about yourself if you'd like, Christy.
Thanks, Molly. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to meet the members of the advisory board. I'm in my second week here at the city and very excited to be taking on this role in Deb's footsteps. And previously, I was with Boulder County Housing Authority on the development team. And some of my other experience includes being a long-range planner for Boulder County. And I also worked at DOLA at the state for 2.5 years on the funding side. So very excited to be back in local government and with this amazing team. And I know we'll be doing lots of work with you going forward, including this upcoming funding round that we have getting going very soon. So it's nice to meet all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Well, we'll move along on our agenda. The next item is the 2023 annual performance report.
So I'm going to be taking this item for us tonight. Yes, you have your in your packets, you'll see the actual performance report spreadsheets that do get submitted to HUD. There is a document that goes with them that has some narrative, but this is really the summary of all of that. And then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So Brenda, that will be sharing over you, but it'll be a little bit more clear to do it this way. Okay, can you see the full screen? Okay. Looks like it is on my side. Everyone good?
Yes,
all right.
See it.
Okay, so we do this every year in March at the March meeting because we're required by HUD to submit our CAPER, which is our consolidated annual performance. It's a performance report of our accomplishments from the year prior. HUD really does keep close tabs on that we are spending our money appropriately and timely, and so we have to provide this to them each year. And then because the city has the locally funded affordable housing program that we put out funding cycles and award the funding in together, essentially. We just loop in our affordable housing program accomplishments as well. And we'll be taking this to council on the 26th for public hearing. And then we'll be submitting the CDBG portions of the CAPER to HUD by the end of the month. There we go. All right, so in our CDBG program, we typically run a rehab program every year using that funding source. Adam Sanderson was our HCI specialist that took this program under his wing, and between 2022 and 2023 really took it to new heights that it had not seen before. We just had more capacity and he had really great skills in this department. He did go ahead and accept a position in the city sustainability group to do similar programs without the federal funding attached. So he can make a really big difference over there. And there is a lot of money out there on the sustainability side to do similar work when it comes to getting people ready for impacts from changing climate and just really trying to move towards electrification and meeting our greenhouse gas goals. So he is excited to do that. We are happy for him, and his position is currently open. So if you know anybody, we are hiring. So in 2023, we did 255,000 and change worth of CDBG rehab projects. This is a giant jump from what was accomplished in 2022. And he even in using old funding, even before that, really increased the size of the program from 2020 to 2021 as well. So we just really accomplished a lot. We helped 20 households, again, an increase from 15 last year. And then the average cost per project, this is something we've been tracking for several years as we saw construction costs skyrocket. It is up again from 2022, about a 35% increase, which was still quite a large increase from 2021. We are allowed to set aside some funds within CDBG for public service. And this year we did fund the Boulder County Housing Counseling Program in the amount of $50,000, which is something we have done for a number of years in a row. It's such a great program, and they know how to accomplish the CDBG program requirements. They're very practiced at it by now, so it's been really great. They helped 191 households with personal finance counseling, especially in preparation for home ownership, and then prevention from foreclosure and other things, ways to get people housed or keep people housed. And we were one of many funding sources that made this possible. So we did leverage extra funding to help those 191 households in Longmont. On our competitive award program, we put out a couple of projects. The first, several were to the Longmont Housing Authority. The security cameras project is something we awarded with 2022 funds, but we did not yet complete that in 2023 because we're really trying to coordinate with public safety for a citywide technology system to have all the cameras on a similar system and be able to toggle and share information when we have, if we catch a crime occurring, we can share that more quickly with the public safety department. So that we're kind of working with the city on their overall program, and that will be complete here in 24. We're gearing up to buy the equipment for that with the CDBG funds. We did complete the Aspen Meadows neighborhood playground project, spent over $25,000 on that. It was actually a roped off playground before because it was unsafe and falling apart, and didn't have accessible options for kids either. So this serves the Aspen Meadows neighborhood. It's low-income housing for 28 families. There was actually, you'll see if the data in the report shows 23 actually served, because that's how many of the units were occupied at the time that we closed out the grant, and we have to report it that way to HUD. But in the future, it could serve up to 28. We did the acquisition of the Village on Main, which is known currently as Village Place. They're at 600 Kaufman Street. That acquisition happened here this December, and construction on that rehab to preserve that affordable housing for the next 20+ years is underway right now, and it's looking beautiful, and it should wrap up in October. We completed the Hover Crossing ADA upgrades to the parking lot. That was just really paving and doing slope changes to make sure that we didn't have any safety concerns for ADA accessibility. And that was paired with some other CDBG funding from a different program that we'll go into in a moment, to really make that entire parking lot ADA compliant. That serves 100 residents of low-income seniors. Putting some money out to our community partners, continuing with after the LHA, we did fund the in-between. They have 2 properties up on 19th and Terry that were in bad need of repairs to their roofs. So we granted them $65,000 there, and they have completed that work, and we're in the middle of the reimbursement process. We've reimbursed a portion of it, but we're waiting for the rest. And that serves 20 households exiting homelessness, earning less than 40% of the area median income. On our CDBG CV program side, so that is one-time coronavirus dollars that we were granted from HUD in 2020, and they have to be used for things that are identified as highly impacted from the COVID pandemic. So we in this year chose to award some monies to LHA to complete the rest of some of their accessibility improvements. We did some concrete curb ramp repairs to make them correct slopes and eliminate trip hazards across the portfolio and multiple properties, so serving a lot of people. And then also completed the rest of that Hearthstone and Lodge parking lot work with renewing striping to add additional ADA spaces, etc. Across the properties, we also added, they're called sensory units. So those properties funded by low-income housing tax credits are required to have 2% of the units accessible for those with hearing or vision impairments. And so these added strobe light doorbells and smoke alarms, and that's specifically what we did with this funding. There's a couple other elements to it. We funded the Center for People with Disabilities on 615 Main with redoing their parking lot curb ramps and striping. This was an LHA property that was leased to the Center for People with Disabilities, but LHA did sell that to them at a reduced rate here in November. So now they own their own property, which was something they really wanted to do. The Veterans Community Project, that is also an LHA property leased to the Veterans Community Project, and they do serve disabled people there on site. And so we did just shy of $20,000 worth of curb ramp improvements to make sure accessibility to their front door was provided as well. And finally, we finished up the Fresh Start utility billing program at just over $131,000 in 2023. This served 112 households this year with utility billing assistance for those that were income qualified, but also behind on their utility payments. That is helping them with housing stability as well, and making sure they have safe and comfortable homes. And that program did finish up. Some of our program metrics under CDBG, we served over 350 households just with this year's funding. 75% of those funds this year were expended. So that is up from prior years. That 38% in 2021 was definitely a COVID-related impact, but that just shows good progress over time. We are, of our entire CDBG CV grant from 2020, we're up to 84% expended. And so we will be finishing that program in 2024. And then the city's CDBG funds brought in $10 million in other funding that was invested into Longmont. So even if it's not the most, it's not the highest amount of federal funds of some of the grant programs that have been out there recently, but it really is a good tool for bringing other investment into the community. 20% of our CDBG funding was spent on admin, so that's the maximum. So we really it takes more than what is allowed under CDBG to staff the program to actually implement the program. So for example, our total grant in 2023 was $474,000 and change, and it cost us about $92,000 well, I should say we're allowed to use about $92,000 of that for admin, which is really staffing to run the program. But that doesn't even fund a full position, and we're using more than one position to administer this program. It's just a lot of requirements to meet. And then 99% of our funding this year between the two programs benefited low and moderate income residents, which is similar to last year. Here's just a showing of how we are successfully using our funding. So this is what carried forward from 2022. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor, but the bar on the left. And then added to that to our 2023 grant. And then we always get some level of program income from funding being paid back. But then, so this is our combined 2023 sources and our expenditures. So what's important to show is that our unexpended funds carrying over from 23 into 2024 are lower than what we started with, which is what HUD likes to see. Here's a snapshot of some of our equity and inclusion accomplishments for the year. So you can see on the left side how our CDBG funds between the two programs were serving different income levels within our community. And then on the other side, you can see demographics of race and ethnicity here to show what segment of the community that we serve. something we are really trying to do over time is ramp up our engagement to target those communities that are maybe not accessing these funds compared to how they sit in our community, and making sure that we have good representation across the community, no matter what race and ethnicity that is. I would say a lot of our CDBG referrals in terms of how people access the funding, specifically for the rehab program, really are through neighbor to neighbor interactions. They see the improvements happening and they come over and ask, how did you get that done? And that's how we get a lot of the new applicants for the rehab program. So especially in mobile home parks, that's how we get a lot of referrals. So moving over to the affordable housing program, we do put out competitive funding for award as well for this program. So we funded the In-Betweens Wesley homes. This is 11 units of new permanent supportive housing that the In-Between is working on and a church property. And they did this. This is the second time they've done this model. The first time was the Micah homes over on about 9th and Francis at the, the UCC, the Universal Church of Christ, I believe. And so that church land donation model has worked really well for them. So they'll be continuing this project into 2024, but we did fund them for pre-development costs to help them get through design and entitlements. And they're getting really close. They're doing a good job. The city-owned rehab of the Adrian House. We spent $163,000 to do that. This is a pilot program. The city owns multiple houses, especially out by Union Reservoir, because they purchased the land for either the purpose of water conservation around the reservoir or for open space, but they came with houses. And so there are a number of them that we said, well, council said, if the city owns homes, let's not rent them at market rates. We should be putting them out as affordable. So this is the first house where it did need a rehabilitation. It was a 100-plus-year-old house, and it definitely cost more than what we originally planned, especially with construction these days. But we did complete that, and it is rent ready. And we've got a partnership between the city and the housing authority to manage the property and the rental and bring in an income qualified family. So we're hoping that that gets rented up soon and finishes our first try at this pilot program. We also funded Thistle Community Housing to do some security rehabilitation improvements at their 12th and Kimbark property. Actually, this was not 12th and Kimbark. I think it's the 200 Kimbark property. And we provided that funding to them in 2023, and they have installed those security camera systems. Continuing on, we provided $646,000 and change to the Habitat for Humanity Rogers Road site to complete their infrastructure. That doing the infrastructure is a tough thing for Habitat because a lot of their funding comes in for the actual homes themselves or through sweat equity, but infrastructure is a huge cost for them to manage upfront. So that is something that we help them do to complete 9 for sale affordable townhome units, hopefully coming this year. We continue to give $300,000 per year for 5 years. So that's through 2025 for the purchase of, it was originally intended for the purchase of land for an affordable home ownership project. It actually ended up going into public improvements to get that land construction ready. And that is now been combined with the parcel next door, which is 7 acres, to make a total of 16 acres of land that's going to be dedicated towards affordable and attainable, so middle income home ownership here in the city. That project, we have a development agreement between the city and the developer in place, and they're going through land use entitlements right now and hope to break ground in September. And then again, Village on Main Acquisition Rehab, they received a combination of CDBG grant funds and affordable housing loan funds. We did fund 2 projects last year that needed a funding commitment early to make their low-income housing tax credit application solid. And so we awarded $1.8 million to the Ascent at Hover Crossing. This will be 75 affordable family units, including an early childhood education program, assuming we can fill the final gap on that funding, which is very, very close. And then the Atwood Commons project. This is 66 units of 1 and 2 bedrooms, and I think studios at about 3rd and Atwood. So both of these projects are carrying forward to 2024. Ascent was successful at getting low-income housing tax credit award here last fall, and so they will be starting construction in about July. And Atwood was not yet successful, and so they're going to be reapplying this year. So we'll just hold that funding because they are still actively working towards getting that completed. So we'll just carry it forward and hope that they get that award this year. We do fee offsets for out of our affordable housing funds. So this year, we paid fees on behalf of the Chrisman 2 project, which is up in construction, almost done with construction up on 66 in Maine. And then we funded the Habitat for Humanity Mountain Brook homes. They're paid a portion of their fees as well. Those are building permit fees. We continue to participate in the Regional Housing Partnership. We do, along with Boulder, use a portion of our home funding to help fund a position there to really just drive the Regional Housing Partnership forward. We've just completed a housing summit here not too long ago, bringing some of the communities together to reaffirm our goals that we all set in 2017 to dedicate 12% of our total housing stock across Boulder County as affordable by 2035. And now we are engaging with that group as Boulder County commissioners sort out the process for allocating the Prop 1B funds that should start collecting in 2025. So the idea is to get a process in place ahead of that, and they're using the Regional Housing Partnership for guidance there. Some of our metrics for this program, we only put out one application cycle last year, but we had a lot of projects apply, so we did not need to put out another. We collected, this was a banner year for our inclusionary housing program. We collected 2.6 million and change of fee in lieu revenues. That was very close to what we had a conservative projection of 1.2 million. And if every project went through gangbusters, it would have been 3.2. So we actually did brought in a lot. That means that there's a lot of market rate development happening, which is critical to have the full range of housing options. And also that 2.6 million is feeding into 2024 affordable housing funds that we can put out for competitive award and beyond. We modernized our grant management program last year by using Neighborly. So all of our application systems are through that now. And we completed a housing needs assessment and affordable housing incentive study with Root Policy Research. And we're just wrapping up the last bit of work on that right now and preparing to bring those incentive recommendations back to council that you all heard from Kayleen last month. So we will hold, when this is repeated to council here next week or 2 weeks from now, we will hold the public hearing. And so here's the details there. And anyone here or anyone in the public is welcome to provide comments to us, either at the public hearing or separately through email or letter or walk-in or however. So I just want to see if there's any questions from the group, and I'm happy to go back to any slides if anyone wants to see something more closely.
I had a question.
Mm-hmm.
At least on the printout, I see you had the Recovery Cafe.
Yep.
It wasn't in your presentation, but it was on my printout. So
we did spend Recovery Cafe money. I think that we need to add that to our presentation before we go to council. I can go ahead and give that update now. So the Recovery Cafe was doing a feasibility study to see if they need a home. They need a permanent home. They're operating out of a church basement right now, and they serve those seeking recovery resources and community around substance abuse recovery or from the myriad of struggles. So they are looking for a permanent home. The city has dedicated some ARPA funding as well to help them find a permanent home. So we use the CV funding to do a feasibility study to see if they could build an addition at the Suites Permanent Supportive Housing over on Sunset Way, because we really, really need recovery services on site at the Suites. We've got folks living there that have expressed a desire to participate, and getting to the church is a challenge, especially with the RTD routes between the suites in that area. So we were hoping that they could build an addition at the suites because there's a fair amount of space there, and then have their permanent home so easily accessible to all those residents. Went through the feasibility process with an architect and engineer, and it is feasible to construct there. It is a challenging site because feels like every utility in the whole city runs through that parcel. But the problem was it's a low-income housing tax credit property. And in talking with the equity investors and the lenders, they are not willing to subordinate their loans to any other mortgage. And so the Recovery Cafe was going to really struggle to get a loan to complete the rest of the work and fund the rest of the work that they would need to be able to build that. And so unfortunately, it was determined infeasible. So we used that money to get that far. But it might be for the best because they are looking for a space that is closer to Main Street so that they can serve people more easily on transit. And as a trade-off, we said, okay, well, could you please perform some satellite services at the suites? We have a ton of meeting space. We've got the people all ready to go. And so they started that in the 1st of February. And we planned on one recovery circle once a week and then just see how it goes. And there's already people lining up down the hallway wanting to come. And so we're already looking at doubling up the services because the desire is so large there. So we're kind of getting both of what we need and they need. It's just kind of going through the process to see what funding source will be best for that. And so that's what we're going to continue working on them with, is using a different funding source to help them locate a different site as well, but keeping going with the services at the suites.
Was
Alejandro,
because to add on to that, I was looking at it, and I was looking at if there's any micro housing, because I know in Denver they started some micro housing programs, and they just opened them up, I think, this week, and it's basically helping the homeless, addicts, and it had basically the housing was like maybe a 10 by 20, something like that, house, and usually a single person can live there, but it would take people off the street and put them in a house instead of leaving them on the street. And they also had some support for them at those locations where they had people supporting them for healthcare issues. And I don't know, I have a rental property. I was kind of looking at it myself to see what the cost would be. And it kind of varies. I mean, you got this accessory dwelling, which is kind of expensive, or I'm looking at a bid on this micro housing, and they said it's only maybe 15, 20,000, and then you get the fees. So I was kind of looking at, you mentioned Third and Atwood, or what I mean is it's closer to the R Center. So these homeless people can walk over to the R Center and get some food and support there, and just gives them some help. So I was kind of looking at that program, if since Denver was the only one that had an idea, if Longmont had maybe some plans for a micro housing.
So it definitely no accomplishments there in 2023 when it comes to these funding sources. We have definitely, and I'm going to let Eliberto and Christina jump in on this as well. We have looked at a ton of options for similar type micro housing developments that are out there. We've toured others. It turns out it is a more expensive way to do it if you are building multiple individual structures rather than building one structure with different units in it. But there is some out there that do that, and it's well received in terms of having that dignity and privacy and being able to have your own space. So there is value there. I think the mayor has looked at a similar model in the past, and that when you put the costs together, especially the supportive services are the tough part. That is really, really critical, and it is very expensive and tough to find support services money. So that is something that we are trying to talk to the state about when Prop 123 is coming out, saying there needs, and Prop 1B as well, to make sure that supportive services, there's a way to access that, because all of these exits from homelessness, if they don't come with access to services, it's makes it a lot more challenging. But Eliberto, Christina, is there anything you want to add on more recent talks about this type of thing?
Well, Alejandro has his hand up, or has had his hand up for a while, so yeah, I can add something in a second, but I want to make sure that he's had his hand up. Want to make sure we address what he wants to say.
Thank you. First, just so you know, Mike, the Hour Center does not serve the unhoused community. It's Hope, the nonprofit Hope that serves the unhoused community. The Hour Center stopped serving unhoused. They serve more. They're more of a family resource center, and people have to actually prove that they have residency. A good model probably for these tiny or small living spaces that you're referring to would be that VCP, the Veterans Community Project, I think it is
Yes.
called, and they're already up and running with some tiny homes here in town. So that would be a good project to look at if you wanted to get a scope on pricing and just, you know, procedures and how they did it, how they're doing the thing over there. A location that I would love to see be used would be the old trailer home park that's next to the home budget. I forget. There's that hardware store that's over there.
Mhm.
So that's a location that would be interesting to explore, to use for something when it comes to the unhoused. And full disclosure, I started moonlighting over at Recovery Cafe, so I'm helping people who are suffering from substance use disorder over there on Fridays and Saturdays. And I might be volunteering to go on Thursdays so I can visit the suites.
Thank you, Alejandro. So let me talk a little bit about some of the things that we have looked at, Mike, and for the rest of the board. I went with Mayor Peck down to Aurora. Aurora has what's called the pallet shelter system. And the pallet shelters themselves are pretty inexpensive. I think, you know, last I heard they're between 10 and 15,000. And they're basically these portable shelters. They're made out of plastic and metal frames. To Molly's point, they provide that privacy and dignity aspect of it. I think the challenge is really they come with supportive services. And when we talked to an agency about, you know, we did some deep exploring and had conversations with the agency that is literally running these pallet shelters. And they gave us some quotes, and it's in the millions of dollars to have 30 some units put here in Longmont, including, you know, infrastructure costs. And then the really big cost, to Molly's point, is the ongoing supportive services. It just adds up quickly. And I'm not sure where we would get that funding at this point. Currently about half of our human services set aside goes to homelessness services and homelessness prevention, and that's only is around 1.1 or 1.2 million. And you know, it would take a significant increase to that amount, which I don't foresee us achieving anytime soon to be able to do that. But we continue to look at different projects. I know the city of Boulder is starting up their day center, and they are having conversations around a micro community as well. So it's not just Denver, Boulder's talking about it as well. But I think it's just a prohibitive cost and it's not even necessarily the infrastructure. It's really the operation side of it that's prohibitive. That's where we struggle to think about how to fund that. But yeah, we are looking at that, Mike. We are having conversations around that. But that's where we're now, and it may be that we look at what Boulder does to see if, you know, how there goes. I will tell you that Denver was paying, I heard, quite a bit for a while. They had some really nice tents, and it was like 50,000 a month per tent. So it was or a very high amount for, or maybe it was per site, but still, even then, it was pretty expensive. So I think that's the big challenge.
Graham.
Yeah, not quite on topic. But thank you, Molly, for the report and all the hard work to you and your team. That's a lot of good projects that are very important. So thank you. I'm wondering what the 2.6 million in fee and lieu might represent in terms of quantity of units or potential housed individuals. Do you happen to know that?
I can give you, I do know our, just give me a moment. I can pull up from last year. We haven't yet done this analysis yet this year because typically we go to council to report on the inclusionary housing program every year in about June. And so at that point in time, we do our end of year unit counts and see how much affordable housing fund we put out compared to how many units were generated and what that really results in. Let me pull up last year's. Just give you an idea. And we will present that to this board as well ahead of going there.
Okay.
And it might take me a minute. So if there's another question, we can do that while I multitask.
I have a question that kind of is tagging along with Graham's question regarding that 12% goal of affordable units versus the fee in lieu. So I think I heard correctly that 2035 is the goal to have 12% affordable housing. Where do we currently stand, and why, I guess, is that goal date so far in the future? What are the obstacles to meeting that goal?
So I've got the source up here that shows us both of those. So first, to answer the question about the number, we're at 6.66% out of the 12% as of the end of 2022. So we're calculating those numbers now for 2023, and we'll come back to you ahead of going to council on that. I would say the barrier is funding. Even with Prop 123 and Prop 1B, we still could use more. I mean, there's the amount of need that we have is so high that even those sources, which are game changers, still wouldn't give us all that we could do. We have a ton of private developers of affordable housing contacting us constantly saying, would you support this? Would you support that? And our answer is yes. Our funding is only limited. So we always have to prioritize with them. Like, what is the one that's most likely to go forward first, to be more successful first? Okay, so let's see the amount of funding. So last year, so in 2022, so this is the numbers that we'd be updating for 2023, but just to give us a sense, we invested $2.4 million of local affordable housing funds into the community. We also brought in 3.5 million of local federal sources. So that's CDBG and ARPA specifically in that case. But we brought in over $31 million of private investment. And our unit count in 2022 was 244 units added. And that while that's not a perfect number, because some of those investments were maybe for preservation rather than adding units, but generally that is a number that you could put together and say that's what it took of private and local government and federal government investment to get those 244 units.
Great, thank you, Molly. Crystal, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, just kind of based off of what you said, I'm curious because I'm seeing that we're doing a lot of investing into current affordable properties and just maintaining them. And then also hearing a lot of infrastructure plans going up for affordable units and different things like that, which is super exciting to hear because that's going to help us at the end of the day. My question is there a certain percentage that we go by as far as like if there's a high need for preservation, say in 2024, do we cap it at a certain percentage or amount toward those projects to make sure that we are prioritizing new housing development? How do you folks figure that?
So there is no formal, cap or cutoff. It really is, preservation doesn't come around that often because right now preservation means affordable housing developments that were put into place 20 years ago. And so it's just not as many. Now, preservation going into the future with all the units that we're generating now is going to be more important in the future, or I should say, need more funding to be able to do it. I will say that if you don't preserve what you have, it will be lost. And so no matter how many units you generate, you will just keep losing on the other end. Right now, they don't come around enough to have to make those tough calls right now. We might hit that someday, but right now they're just not flooding our application process, I'd say.
Thank you. Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to know, to see, are we getting a lot of those and how are we prioritizing both, right? Maybe not this year, but maybe next year we can focus on XYZ projects. So that's good to hear. Thank you for explaining that.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? Mike?
Yes, on this micro community housing, I know sounds like it's expensive, but there's also another program that's being looked at. It's the opioid council meeting. So basically, a lot of the opioids that were being sold, prescribed by doctors and sold in pharmacies, and then people would take these opioids and then become addicted. Now they're addicts to fentanyl or heroin or whatever. But there's billions of dollars that are being paid by pharmacies and the opioid manufacturers, and they are coming into Colorado. And there is council meetings on what should we do with these funds. So I don't know, I think the city manager was at one of the meetings, but I was hoping they would take some of these funds and help micro communities. So that's a recommendation. I haven't seen that move forward, but I think it's a lot of those funds are going to different areas, whether it's in the jail or maybe mental health partners or different other areas. But can there be some funding for the micro community? Help get homeless off the street and put them in a small shelter, single bedroom shelter.
Christina, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, and I can talk a little bit about how those funds are managed. And you're right, yeah, Harold is part of the Regional Opioid Council. And then we have several representatives from Longmont. And so how, as I understand, those funds are managed is what Longmont did is actually pull them together with Boulder County. And Boulder County as a whole created kind of an advisory to the regional council. And so the direction when they first rolled out was really to come to the table with shovel-ready recommendations. And so I'm not sure how that's going to work out in the future, but we definitely are tapped in to that funding. And just recently Harold asked, because they're going to put more, have more individuals from the Longmont municipality and I believe Lions asked about what kind of, who should be at the table with that. And so the couple names that I gave were representative from Hope, because we know that they serve that population, and then an internal city person from our public safety department. So my hope is that, those recommendations and that need will be voiced at that level.
Christy, thanks for including that link to the opioid council. So that's in the chat as well. Great. Well, Molly, thank you so much. What an amazing year of accomplishments. That was incredible to see. If there aren't any other comments or questions, I think we'll move on to our next agenda item.
Thank you so much for the time. We'll probably hop off, and thank you for the team who was also on here for helping make this happen this last year. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Molly and
Yeah.
team. Thank you.
Good night.
Great. So our next item of business is the 2024 Affordable Housing and CDBG funding cycle. Is that you, Eliberto, taking that?
So Molly just it was Molly's, but it was just we just had to put it on there. It's an informational item, just letting the board know that it is getting put out. So they will come back to us with more information. It really wasn't a discussion topic. It was just a FYI to the board that they are getting ready to release their cycle soon. So we'll be ready for when application starts coming in.
And actually, I can add to that, Eliberto. The the notice will be posted in Sunday's paper along with social media and so forth for the city, and they'll take applications through the neighborly system that Molly mentioned from the March 18th through April 1st, and then the applications for those applicants that are chosen with projects that are viable, then we'll continue through the complete application process. So initially, it's just a letter of interest that they'll be reviewing.
Great, thank you for that. Then I think we'll move on then to the 2024 funding process and lien process updates.
Yeah, and that's me and Christina and Brenda. We can talk to it about. Just wanted to continue to keep the board up to date on the work that we're doing. I'm actually going to show you something that I've been working on. It's just a visual representation. I think one of the great things about the lien process is it really asks you to deconstruct the work and the process that you're doing, and to really put it in a way that you can see it, understand it, and you can start listing some of the things that have to happen. So this is something that I'm just working on. It's still very much in draft form. That's right, it's not in the packet, but I did want to share it with the board so you could see. This is, some of the work that we are working on. So just give me 1 second to pull it up, and I want to share it with you. Also a reminder, we are meeting, the Collaborators Fund group is meeting in 2 weeks to talk about the application. I have already sent them the recommendations that we have, and we're going to take it back to their groups, and they're going to do their own, and we're just going to come together and we'll see what ends up at the end of that. So I'm just going to share this picture. Again, it's just for you all to see how we are looking at this and breaking it down. So give me 1 second. All right, can everybody see this thing? So this is kind of a visual representation of the whole process. It's not complete. Again, this is draft form. And what I've done is I've broken it up into these concentric circles that represent different parties that are involved on our side, not the agency side, but what's involved on our side for this whole process, right? So the inner circle is really council, what council does, right? So, they don't have a huge role in this because they really have mandated it or they delegated that authority to you all, to this board and to staff to work together to bring recommendations. But they do have a couple of things. One is, and Christina can jump in. She presented to council the human services budget for this year back in June of 2023, I think, Christina. Just kind of how overall how we were going to spend it, including the homelessness funds and the agency grant funds. Then of course council has to approve the budget, and then finally council approves your recommendations for funding. Then the next level is what you all do, right? So it's, as you can look at the little clock face is really the months of the year. In December we have our board debrief. you know, we review the application between January and February. We're going to talk about the site visits tonight, getting a set, and you know, those are all the different things that you are all involved in the process and your tasks. And on the right side, I kind of took them out of the wheel and I listed them as tasks. And then the other two, I needed 2 circles to represent all the stuff that staff needs to do. There's just a lot of work that Brenda and I are working together to accomplish. Of course, it was Christina's support. There's just a lot of work that needs to be done. And of course, there's ways that we can be better. I always think that we can improve how we do things. But I just wanted to share that this is a kind of work. This is what we're trying. This is what the lean process helps us to do, is to visualize and deconstruct the work so we can see where we can find efficiencies and make it better for all involved. So I'm going to stop sharing and just wanted to give you that update. And of course, if you guys have questions, we can discuss that as well. I'll send it once this is complete, not in draft form. I will send it to the board. I'm just not ready to share it yet completely. I'm still working on it and getting feedback from Christina and Brenda. I appreciate their help in it. So any thoughts or questions about the model that I'm presenting? And if not, that's okay. I will come back in April with hopefully a finished model and also with some final application revisions based on our recommendations, based on the recommendations that we get from City of Boulder and Boulder County as well. Of course, as a partner, they have their say as well. And so we'll negotiate that. I think we're meeting March 26th, I think is when we're meeting with them in Lafayette. And I'll come back at the April meeting with the final application that will be. I do have an update on the timing though. This is something that we did bring to the funders collaborative, and we advocated on your behalf and on our behalf. I don't remember the exact date, but it will be, instead of opening in July, it will be opening in June this year, which will give us more time to do the hearings, more time for you all to review. So you hopefully won't be during, finals for those of you that are in school, give you some more time to do that. So hopefully, yeah, we're excited to move the whole cycle a little bit up earlier so that we won't be, it feels like every year we are all in crush for time to get it done. So I'm pretty happy that we pushed and we had great conversations, and we compromised, and we were able to move it back a little bit so that we'll all have more time to review our evaluations. Good. Christina, do you want to add anything else?
I just, appreciate I think Martha said it as well, just the visual representation. And I think this is also a good representation of how each of the different layers work together, and if one of those pieces doesn't get done in a timely fashion, then it kind of throws off the rest of the circles. So, if we don't get those recommendations in front of council, then that throws off the contracting process. And I just really think that a circle and the way that you did it was really well represented.
Thank you. And congratulations to Crystal. She graduates in May. So that is something. If we have an in-person meeting and we don't have a crazy snowstorm, we'll bring some cupcakes to celebrate that in May. So that's really awesome. Congrats, Crystal. So that's our update on the funding process. Again, I'm sorry it's taking so long. Part of it is trying to get, we're trying to organize three cities in a county. It's challenging to get everybody's schedules together, but we are moving forward with the work. So that was my update.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And also a testament to all the hard work that you have 2 circles on that plan, all the work that you do. Next on the agenda is to finalize the 2024 board work plan.
Brenda, do you want to share that one? Thank you. So I think we've been pretty good sticking to it. Yeah, I think that unless there's any other pieces, I think that we are ready to vote on it and remove the drafts portion of it. I think we've been pretty good sticking to it so far. Any thoughts, or can if not, we can entertain a motion to accept it?
I have a question, Aliberto.
Yeah.
In the event something comes up throughout the year, we can always add it to the agenda, right?
Oh,
This
totally.
is stone.
Yeah. I mean, this is not set in stone. This is just kind of a guiding document for us. But if we need to remove something or we need to add something, yeah, totally.
Thank you.
We just want to give ourselves kind of like, okay, what are the things we want to work on?
So can I move to approve, or does that have to be the chairperson?
No, that's fine. That's good.
And I second.
Okay.
All in favor?
All right. Thank you very much. What's the next thing on the agenda?
We have site visit schedule next.
All right. So this has been a lot of work on Brenda's parts. I want to thank Brenda for all the she has put together different. She shared with me different models, ways to get it done. So I want to thank Brenda for all the work that she's done. And so we finally think we have a plan that will meet the needs of folks. Can you rotate that thing? I don't. There it is. All right, so and again, this is going to be we're gonna try and do like we have Brenda. What ended up doing is we went through all these organizations and we are going to do a single day in Lafayette where we go and meet 3 agencies that single day. Same thing with Boulder, because Boulder had several, we did give them 2 days. And then Longmont, we'd have 1 day, and then the bottom 2 are from are in Denver, so we're just gonna do a Teams type of meeting. But I think that we, and I'm not sure if Brenda has sent this out for you all to sign up, but she'll probably do it after this. If anybody wants to come with me to any of these, they're all going to be 1 day only. I can drive, I can get a city car, and I can meet us at the Civic Center, and I can drive us to all 3 locations those days. So just wanted to share with this. Not sure if anybody has any questions or comments about them, but I think that this is a really good way to go, and I think it meets all the needs that we've been talking about.
Crystal.
Aliberto, thank you. And Brenda, thank you for coordinating all of those dates. I'm sure it wasn't easy to try to find a date that worked with multiple agencies. So kudos to you. I'm really happy with this. I think that this is going to be much more doable and easier to track as a board member who's full-time elsewhere. I could set a date on the calendar, schedule a PTO, and be there. So thank you guys for doing the hard work to make it more convenient for the board members so that we can attend and actually get to know these agencies a little bit more.
All right. And then speaking of that, we are currently, and we'll send something out. We are currently working on our engagement meetings with nonprofits, where we'll have an opportunity to engage. And of course, we'll send out an invite to the board as well. And so just be on the lookout for that. We are in the midst of coordinating those. Just wanted to give both the nonprofits and the board the opportunity to engage with one another and learn more about what they're doing. And if you have questions that we can't find in the, because we understand the hearings are really super fast and you may want to know more. And so we are working on coordinating those, and you'll hear more about that soon too as well.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, just a little bit about how that will, like what we want to do in those meetings and kind of your
Sure.
world pay model and just
Yeah,
brief.
so I'm not sure.
But
Yeah.
before
I'd be
we do
happy
that,
to.
Alberto, Graham has had his hand up, so I just want to
Oh,
make
sorry,
sure.
Graham, I didn't see your hand. Go ahead.
Didn't see that.
No,
It
it's
makes
okay.
it with your wall.
I'm curious about the assignment of the site visits. Is it still going to be sort of like last year was based on what buckets we as a board member are going to review, or are you hoping to just, because it's geographically clustered, are you hoping a board member signs up for a day instead of just maybe 3 committees?
So I still think that the idea of signing up for the agencies that are going to be in the things that you are interested in reviewing makes the most sense. That being said, you know, because we are offering those other engagement opportunities, it could be, I'm going to leave it up to board members to decide what makes most sense for them. I do think it makes a lot of sense that if you're going to do housing and you know, that if there's a day, but again, because they're geographically, they're kind of diverse, right? So when we go to Boulder, we have we're doing both the generations and the public and the fruit and veggie program, right? So it's a little bit diverse. So whatever makes most sense for you all is what I would is the way that we're treating it. But I do think if there is a day that has a plethora of the agencies that you think you'll be reviewing, then that makes a lot of sense too. But
Okay,
again, we're
thanks.
also going to provide this engagement opportunity as well. So
Yep.
okay. So to Christina's point, yeah, I'm not sure if you guys ever heard of the World Cafe model. It's just there's so many wonderful facilitation models out there, you know, the just the 4 questions and some other stuff that I've seen, the motivational interviewing and all sorts of wonderful and World Cafe is just one of those models, and it's really a way for, you know, small groups to engage and look at issues and topics. And right now I'm working with Christina and Brenda to come up with the right questions. And we're finding, I think we have a good spot that we're gonna do it that allows us to meet together and then break out into smaller groups so we can get deeper into some of the issues. And so that's what we're planning for them, is really an engagement for them to know you more, but also to think about the future of, you know, human services funding and also and the realities that we're facing about, you know, like I said, this year we had so many more applicants, and you know, I just think that's not going to stop, is my concern, is that, you know, we're going to continue to have more applications, and that means, you know, we're going to spread our money thinner and thinner every year. And so that's a concern I have. And so we're looking at ways to deal with that. And so hopefully this World Cafe model will allow us to do that.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks for all your hard work, and thank you, Brenda, too, for putting this together. Mhm. It looks like we're at the end of our agenda for the evening. Are there any other points of business to go over before we adjourn? I guess not. We're a sleepy bunch. It's definitely a snowy day.
Still snowing.
Yeah. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn for the night?
I motion.
All right.
And a
And
second?
second.
All right.
Right. Oh,
Thank you all. Have a
thank
good
you. Have a
night.
great night.
Stay
Bye.
warm.
Everyone.
Gotta go to work tomorrow. Stay safe.
Good
Thanks.
night.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. Brenda, I'm gonna stop